Find a comfortable place, close your eyes. Imagine yourself sitting quietly by a warm fire, the soft crackle of flames filling the air. Outside, the wind moves gently across the wide, open land. This is a story from a long time ago, from the age of Vikings, a story about friendship, honor, and quiet courage. If you truly enjoy the stories and calm moments I share, consider subscribing so you never miss a chance to relax and unwind with me. Now, take a deep breath, settle in, and let yourself drift peacefully. Long ago, in a cold northern land filled with mountains, rivers, and green fields, there lived a wise man named Njal. Njal was known far and wide for his calm mind and kind heart. He wasn't a fighter or a warrior. Instead, he was a man who used his wisdom to solve problems and bring peace. People came to him for advice because they trusted his calm voice and steady thoughts. Njal lived in a cozy house with his wife. Their home was simple but warm, with wooden walls and a hearth that never went out. The people around them respected Njal because he was fair and patient, always thinking before he spoke. Beside Njal lived his closest friend, a brave warrior named Gunnar. Gunnar was strong and fearless. He was a skilled fighter, known for his quick sword and steady hand. But despite his strength, Gunnar was gentle and loyal. He cared deeply for Njal and trusted him more than anyone else. Together, Njal and Gunnar were like two sides of the same coin. One mind, one strength. Njal helped guide the people with his wisdom, and Gunnar protected them with his bravery. One day, a disagreement began between two families in the village. Small words were spoken that grew into harsh feelings. The peaceful land started to feel heavy with anger. Njal tried to calm everyone with his wise advice. He reminded them that honor was not about winning fights, but about keeping peace. But the fires of anger were strong. Gunnar, though, knew that sometimes a warrior's courage was needed to protect the weak and keep peace safe. So he stood ready, not to fight for power, but to guard the land and the people he loved. As the days passed, tensions grew, but Njal never lost his calm. When neighbors argued, he listened carefully. When sadness came, he offered kind words. His voice was like a gentle river, steady and soft, helping others to find peace again. Gunnar continued to watch over the village, his sword always close, but his heart full of hope for a peaceful tomorrow. This story reminds us that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from fighting but from listening, understanding, and standing quietly with those we care about. Now, take a deep breath. Feel the calmness of the firelight around you, and let your thoughts drift gently like leaves on a slow river. As the seasons turned and the cold winds blew over the Icelandic plains, the story of Njal and Gunnar grew more complex. Life in the village was quiet but never truly peaceful. The land was beautiful, rolling hills dotted with wild flowers, the distant sound of rivers flowing softly, but beneath that calm surface, old grudges and new troubles stirred like a slow, deep thunder. Njal sat often by his hearth in the evening, the flickering fire casting soft shadows on the wooden walls. His eyes were thoughtful, and his mind worked like the steady currents beneath a still lake. He knew that beneath every harsh word and angry glance there was a story, a pain, a wound that had not healed. And in those times, wisdom was more powerful than the sharpest sword. Gunnar, meanwhile, kept his home close by. His hands were calloused from years of hard work and fighting, but his heart was gentle. He loved the quiet moments, watching the sun sink behind the hills, listening to the songs of birds, and sharing stories with his friends. Yet he was always ready, like a calm sea before a storm, to rise and protect when danger came. One cold morning, news came that one of the neighboring families had wronged another. Small insults exchanged, cattle taken, and old promises broken. The village felt the tension tighten like a bowstring pulled too far. Njal knew that if the anger was allowed to grow unchecked, it could tear their community apart. He gathered the leaders of the families in his longhouse. The room was filled with the scent of burning pine and the soft murmur of the fire. Njal spoke slowly and carefully, his voice a steady anchor. Let us not forget that peace is the foundation of our lives. Bloodshed only leads to more sorrow. Let us find a way to heal what is broken, not tear it further. But the words were met with mixed feelings. Some were ready to listen, others were caught in the fire of their pride and old wounds. Gunnar stood quietly beside Njal, his presence a silent promise of strength. When words failed, he was the shield for those who sought safety. But he also believed in Njal's wisdom and knew that the sharp sword was a last resort, not the first. As days passed, small acts of kindness began to break through the anger. A basket of food left quietly at a neighbor's door, a helping hand with the harvest. The village was reminded slowly of the bonds that held them together. The nights grew longer, and the northern lights danced softly in the sky, a shimmering curtain of green and purple that made the cold seem magical. Njal often gazed at them, thinking of the stories they told, stories of gods, heroes, and fate. One evening, as the village settled into the quiet hush of night, Njal spoke to his family, his voice barely louder than the crackling fire. Remember, it is not strength alone that holds a community, but the patience to listen and the courage to forgive. And Gunnar, sitting near the door, nodded quietly. He had faced many battles, but the greatest one was always the one within, to keep peace when the world around you demanded war. The story of Njal and Gunnar is not just about conflict, but about the slow weaving of understanding and the quiet power of friendship. It reminds us that even in a harsh world, calm hearts can bring light. Winter had settled deeply over the Icelandic landscape. Outside, the world was wrapped in a thick blanket of snow. The tall pine trees stood silent and heavy with white, their branches bending slightly under the weight. The river, once lively with the rush of spring waters, was now frozen, its surface smooth and gleaming in the pale moonlight. The cold air was crisp and clear, and each breath showed like a soft mist in the silence of the night. Inside Njal's longhouse, however, the world was very different. The stone hearth was alive with roaring flames, filling the room with warmth and the comforting scent of burning wood. The walls were decorated with carefully woven tapestries that told stories of past heroes and ancient battles, though tonight the stories were more gentle, fitting the mood of the gathering. The winter feast was a sacred time, a moment when families set aside their daily worries to come together. It was a chance to share food, laughter, and stories, and to remind one another of the ties that bound them. Guests from neighboring farms had arrived, filling the longhouse with soft footsteps, low voices, and the faint clinking of wooden bowls and spoons. Njal sat at the head of the table, his wise eyes reflecting the flickering firelight. His face was calm and kind, framed by a beard that was streaked with silver, a sign of his many years and the wisdom he carried. He wore simple but well-made clothes, the fabric soft and worn, comfortable like an old friend. Around him sat his family, his wife, gentle and strong, her eyes bright with warmth. Their children, some grown, some still young and wide-eyed, and close friends, including Gunnar, who was both Njal's trusted companion and a fierce protector. The table was heavy with food, bowls of thick stew simmering with root vegetables, salted fish, fresh bread baked that morning, and barrels of sweet mead. The warmth of the fire mingled with the smell of the rich meal, making the air inside the longhouse heavy and cozy. Njal's voice rose gently above the murmur of conversation as he began to speak. "My friends," he said, "this season is harsh and long, but it teaches us many things. The cold can break bones, and the dark can chill the heart. But together we are warm. Together we are strong." He paused, looking around the room. "I have seen many winters, and with each one I learn that patience is a warrior's greatest shield. Not all battles are fought with swords. Some are won by quiet words, by listening, by forgiveness." Gunnar, sitting nearby, nodded slowly. His strong hands rested on the table, calloused from years of wielding weapons and working the land. Though a man of action, Gunnar respected Njal's calm wisdom more than any battle cry. The children listened attentively, their eyes shining in the firelight. Even the adults leaned in, their usual stoic expressions softened by the warmth of the moment. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying the soft rustling of branches. The night was deep, but inside Njal's home, the laughter and stories created a bubble of light and comfort, safe from the cold and dark. Njal continued, his tone steady and soothing. "Remember, a sharp sword may defend a body, but it cannot protect a heart that is torn by anger and hate. It is kindness that builds lasting peace. It is understanding that binds us as family, as friends, as a people." He glanced toward Gunnar, who smiled quietly in return. "And when the time comes for action, we stand firm, not for revenge, but to protect what is good and just." A gentle silence fell over the room, filled only by the crackle of the fire and the soft breathing of those gathered. The warmth was not only from the flames, but from the shared sense of hope and belonging. As the feast went on, stories were told, tales of old heroes, of quiet deeds of bravery, of moments when small acts changed the course of many lives. The voices rose and fell like a gentle tide, carrying everyone deeper into the night, calmer and more peaceful with every word. Winter had settled deeply over the Icelandic landscape. Outside, the world was wrapped in a thick blanket of snow. The tall pine trees stood silent and heavy with white, their branches bending slightly under the weight. The river, once lively with the rush of spring waters, was now frozen, its surface smooth and gleaming in the pale moonlight. The cold air was crisp and clear, and each breath showed like a soft mist in the silence of the night. Inside in Njal's longhouse, however, the world was very different. The stone hearth was alive with roaring flames, filling the room with warmth and the comforting scent of burning wood. The walls were decorated with carefully woven tapestries that told stories of past heroes and ancient battles, though tonight the stories were more gentle, fitting the mood of the gathering. The winter feast was a sacred time, a moment when families set aside their daily worries to come together. It was a chance to share food, laughter, and stories, and to remind one another of the ties that bound them. Guests from neighboring farms had arrived, filling the longhouse with soft footsteps, low voices, and the faint clinking of wooden bowls and spoons. Njal sat at the head of the table, his wise eyes reflecting the flickering firelight. His face was calm and kind, framed by a beard that was streaked with silver a sign of his many years and the wisdom he carried. He wore simple but well-made clothes, the fabric soft and worn, comfortable like an old friend. Around him sat his family, his wife, gentle and strong, her eyes bright with warmth, their children, some grown, some still young and wide-eyed, and close friends, including Gunnar, who was both Njal's trusted companion and a fierce protector. The table was heavy with food, bowls of thick stew simmering with root vegetables, salted fish, fresh bread baked that morning, and barrels of sweet mead. The warmth of the fire mingled with the smell of the rich meal, making the air inside the longhouse heavy and cozy. Njal's voice rose gently above the murmur of conversation as he began to speak. "My friends," he said, "this season is harsh and long, but it teaches us many things. The cold can break bones, and the dark can chill the heart, but together we are warm. Together we are strong." He paused, looking around the room. "I have seen many winters, and with each one I learn that patience is a warrior's greatest shield. Not all battles are fought with swords. Some are won by quiet words, by listening, by forgiveness." Gunnar, sitting nearby, nodded slowly. His strong hands rested on the table, calloused from years of wielding weapons and working the land. Though a man of action, Gunnar respected Njal's calm wisdom more than any battle cry. The children listened attentively, their eyes shining in the firelight. Even the adults leaned in, their usual stoic expressions softened by the warmth of the moment. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying the soft rustling of branches. The night was deep, but inside Njal's home, the laughter and stories created a bubble of light and comfort, safe from the cold and dark. Njal continued, his tones steady and soothing. "Remember, a sharp sword may defend a body, but it cannot protect a heart that is torn by anger and hate. It is kindness that builds lasting peace. It is understanding that binds us as family, as friends, as a people." He glanced toward Gunnar, who smiled quietly in return. "And when the time comes for action, we stand firm, not for revenge, but to protect what is good and just." A gentle silence fell over the room, filled only by the crackle of the fire and the soft breathing of those gathered. The warmth was not only from the flames, but from the shared sense of hope and belonging. As the feast went on, stories were told, tales of old heroes, of quiet deeds of bravery, of moments when small acts changed the course of many lives. The voices rose and fell like a gentle tide, carrying everyone deeper into the night, calmer and more peaceful with every word. After the feast, the village slowly settled into the quiet rhythm of winter days. Outside, the snow lay thick and soft, muffling all sound and turning the world into a vast white blanket. The sun rose late and set early, casting long shadows that stretched like fingers over the frozen fields. Inside Anjal's home, life moved with a gentle pace. The mornings began with the smell of fresh bread baking over the fire and the soft murmur of voices as family members spoke in low tones to avoid disturbing the peaceful calm. Njal himself often sat by the window, watching the delicate frost patterns that formed on the glass, like tiny, intricate paintings made by winter's hand. Gunnar, though restless by nature, found comfort in the stillness. He spent his days mending tools, caring for the animals that stayed indoors for warmth, and helping with chores that kept the household running smoothly. Despite his warrior's strength, he valued these simple tasks. They connected him to the land and the people he loved. On some afternoons, Njal and Gunnar would walk together outside, wrapped in thick cloaks against the biting cold. The silence of the snow-covered fields was a balm to their minds. Their footsteps were soft on the powdery ground, and the only sounds were the distant calls of birds brave enough to weather the winter. Njal would speak quietly, sharing thoughts about life, honor, and the delicate balance between peace and conflict. Gunnar listened closely, valuing the wisdom of his friend, even when it contrasted with the instinct to defend and fight. One afternoon, as the sun barely touched the horizon, casting a warm golden glow across the snow, Njal said, "In times like these, when the world is still, we must look inward. True strength is not only in the sword arm, but in the heart that knows when to be still." Gunnar nodded, feeling the weight of those words settle deep inside him. As night fell early, the family would gather once again around the hearth. The fire crackled softly, casting dancing shadows that seemed to bring the walls to life. Njal's wife prepared warm drinks made from herbs gathered in the summer, their scents filling the air with subtle sweetness. The children, now snug in their woolen clothes, sat close, eager to hear more stories. Njal's voice was low and steady, a soft rhythm that eased tired minds and gentle souls. He told them of ancient heroes, of gods and giants who walked the earth long ago, and of the brave deeds of their own ancestors. But the stories were not filled with violence or battle cries. Instead, they spoke of loyalty, kindness, and the quiet courage to do what is right, even when it is hard. One favorite tale was of a farmer who chose forgiveness over revenge, healing a bitter feud that had lasted generations. The children listened with wide eyes, their imaginations painting vivid pictures of snowy fields, roaring fires, and hands joined in peace. Njal's words slowed, becoming softer, as if weaving a gentle spell. The room grew quiet except for the steady rhythm of breathing, and one by one, the children's eyes fluttered closed. Though winter brought peace and rest, Njal and Gunnar both knew the world outside was never truly still. There were old grievances that simmered beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to flare up again. Njal often pondered how to guide their people through the challenges ahead. He believed in the power of words, the strength of law, and the hope that understanding could prevent needless suffering. Gunnar, for all his strength and skill, trusted Njal's wisdom. Together they formed a bond that balanced might with mind, a partnership that kept the village safe through the long, cold months. As they sat together one evening, the firelight warm on their faces, Njal spoke softly, "The coming spring will bring change, Gunnar. We must be ready, not just with swords, but with open hearts." Gunnar nodded, feeling the quiet resolve settle over him like a shield. The long winter nights stretched on, each one a quiet canvas painted with frost and moonlight. Inside Njal's home, the glow of the hearth became a beacon of warmth and comfort, drawing the family and friends close as the world outside remained still and silent. After the evening meal and the sharing of stories, Njal and Gunnar often remained seated near the fire, speaking in low voices. The crackling flames cast a golden glow over their faces, revealing lines of experience and strength. These conversations were not hurried or loud, but slow, thoughtful exchanges, moments of reflection that grounded them in the midst of uncertainty. Njal would often speak of the laws that bound their people, the intricate web of honor and duty that shaped every decision. "A man's word is his strongest shield," he said one night, his eyes steady and calm, "and his promises, the foundation of trust." Gunnar listened, nodding slowly. He knew all too well the dangers when promises were broken, how swiftly anger could spiral into violence, and how fragile peace truly was. But Njal's voice was filled with hope, too. He believed that even the hardest hearts could soften with time and understanding. We must plant seeds of peace now, so that when the spring comes, they may grow strong. During the daylight hours, the village moved with a gentle, measured rhythm. Men and women worked quietly, tending to the animals sheltered in warm barns, repairing fences damaged by winter storms, or weaving warm cloth to protect against the cold. Children played in the snow, their laughter a soft music that lifted the spirits of all who heard. They built small forts, made snow angels, and chased one another with rosy cheeks and bright eyes, their joy a bright spot amid the long months of dark. Njal's wife cared for the household with quiet strength, her hands skilled at turning simple ingredients into nourishing meals, and her voice soft as she soothed the youngest children to sleep. The sense of family and home was a stronghold against the cold and the worries of the wider world. Gunnar, too, found moments of peace. He would sometimes step outside alone, the cold biting but refreshing, and look across the snow-covered fields to the distant mountains. The vastness of the land reminded him of his place in the world, small but connected to something greater. Though the winter was long and often harsh, the promise of spring lingered like a whispered hope. Njal often spoke of it, not just the changing season, but the chance for new beginnings, for healing old wounds, and for building a future free from the shadows of past conflicts. He taught that just as the earth rests beneath the snow, gathering strength for the rebirth to come, so too must the hearts of men and women find rest and renewal. Soon, he said softly one evening, the snow will melt, the rivers will flow again, and the world will wake from its slumber. We must be ready, with open hands and open hearts. Gunnar looked at Njal with quiet determination. And when that time comes, we will face it together. After many long weeks of winter's quiet embrace, subtle signs began to appear that the world was stirring once again. The snow, heavy and unyielding for so long, started to soften at the edges. Small patches of earth became visible near the riverbanks, where the ice was thinning and the water gurgled faintly beneath. Njal noticed these signs during his daily walks with Gunnar. The air was still crisp, but carried a hint of warmth, a gentle promise that the harsh season was loosening its grip. The birds, once silent or hidden, began to sing soft, hesitant songs that filled the frosty air with new life. Inside the longhouse, the mood shifted too. Conversations carried a subtle brightness, like the first light of dawn breaking through a night sky. The family prepared for the coming season, storing away heavy furs and readying tools for the fields and pastures. Njal's voice, calm and steady as always, spoke softly to those gathered. The world awakens, and with it, we must prepare not only our bodies but our spirits. Spring will bring growth, but also challenges, as all change does. Gunnar, watching the thaw in the landscape, felt a mix of hope and caution. The battles they had faced and those yet to come were never far from his mind, yet here in the softening earth there was a rare peace. The days lengthened, and with them came small moments of joy and connection. Njal and Gunnar often sat together in the evenings, their conversation drifting from the practical to the philosophical. Njal spoke of the strength found in quiet patience, how endurance was as vital as courage. A river does not rush over the stones, he said. It flows steadily, shaping the land with gentle persistence. Gunnar nodded, understanding that this patience was not weakness, but a different kind of power, one that could calm anger and prevent needless strife. Around them, the village began to stir. Farmers checked their fields, readying them for planting. Children played in the warming sun, their laughter a welcome sound after the long silence of winter. Njal's wife and children busied themselves with the preparations of spring, weaving lighter cloth, tending to the small garden plots that promised fresh herbs and vegetables soon. The household was alive with quiet activity, a gentle hum of life returning. Despite the peaceful moments, both Njal and Gunnar were aware that the world beyond their village was not so calm. News had arrived of disputes between neighboring clans, old grievances rekindling like embers beneath ashes. Njal's mind was occupied with how to protect his people without plunging them into violence. He believed deeply in the power of law and wise counsel, in finding paths to peace through understanding and compromise. One evening, as they sat watching the fire flicker, Njal said to Gunnar, "We must be the calm in the storm, the steady hands that guide others away from destruction." Gunnar, ever loyal and strong, replied quietly, "And if those hands fail, I will stand ready to defend what is ours." Their friendship, forged in years of shared trials and trust, was a beacon of hope, a reminder that even in uncertain times, unity could bring strength. As the days grew warmer, the village began to stir with life once more. The heavy blankets of snow melted away bit by bit, revealing the earth beneath, dark and rich with promise. The fields, resting under winter's hush, now showed signs of awakening, tiny green shoots pushing bravely through the softening soil. Women gathered near the well, their voices gentle and low as they shared news and plans for the planting season. Children, wrapped in lighter furs, chased each other through puddles formed by melting ice, their laughter echoing like a soft melody across the quiet hills. Njal walked among them with a thoughtful calm, his gaze steady and kind. He greeted each neighbor with warmth, his presence a quiet reassurance that the village remained strong and united. Inside Njal's longhouse, preparations for spring were underway. The heavy winter cloaks were put away, replaced by lighter garments woven from linen and soft wool. The hearth still burned, but now with less urgency as the chill in the air eased with each passing day. Njal's wife tended the garden beds inside their small greenhouse, a simple structure of wood and animal skins designed to protect delicate plants from the last frost. She carefully nurtured seedlings of herbs and vegetables, whispering encouragement as if the plants could hear her gentle voice. Gunnar spent his days repairing fences and sharpening tools, his movements methodical and calm. Though his spirit was restless, he found solace in these steady tasks, the familiar rhythm grounding him like the earth beneath his feet. Evenings were the time for reflection and stories. Njal and Gunnar sat close to the fire, their faces softly illuminated by flickering flames. The conversation flowed like a quiet stream, full of memories and quiet hopes. Njal spoke of the cycles of nature, the rise and fall of seasons mirroring the ebb and flow of human lives. "We are part of this great dance," he said softly. "There are times to sow and times to reap, times to speak and times to listen." Gunnar nodded, feeling the truth of those words settle deeply within him. "And times to stand firm," he added, "when the safety of those we love is threatened." Njal smiled gently. "Yes, but always with wisdom." As the days lengthened and the sun's warmth grew steadier, the village slowly shook off the slumber of winter. The snow that had lain heavy and silent across the land began to retreat, melting into soft rivulets that traced silver lines down hillsides and into frozen streams. The sound of water, barely audible at first, grew louder, a gentle murmur that promised renewal and the return of life. Njal and Gunnar walked often along the thawing riverbanks, their boots crunching softly on the damp earth, the air crisp but sweet with the scent of melting snow and budding growth. Njal paused frequently to examine the small green shoots poking through the soil, marveling at their stubborn determination to survive the harsh winter. "Life," he said quietly, "finds a way even in the coldest and darkest times." The villagers moved with a renewed energy that was careful and deliberate, not the hurried rush of spring's arrival in more bustling places, but a slow, respectful unfolding. Farmers began to prepare their fields for planting, turning the soil with wooden plows, their hands steady and skilled. Women wove baskets and mended clothing, their fingers nimble and sure, while children ran freely through the thawing meadows, their laughter brightening the air like sunlight through leaves. Inside Njal's longhouse, the transition from winter to spring was marked by soft changes. The heavy furs that had lined beds and sheltered bodies from biting cold were carefully folded and stored away. Thinner blankets woven from wool and linen replaced them, lighter but still warm against the lingering chill. Njal's wife moved with quiet grace through the home, tending to the hearth fire that now burned with a gentler glow. The scent of fresh herbs, mint, thyme, and rosemary, mixed with the rich aroma of bread baking in the earthen oven. The children gathered around the fire as evening fell, their faces glowing softly in the flickering light, eyes wide with wonder as Njal told stories of ancient heroes and wise leaders, tales filled not with battle cries but with lessons of courage, kindness, and honor. One story told of a man who chose peace over revenge, who healed wounds that had festered for generations. Njal's voice was calm and soothing, weaving each word like a thread in a tapestry meant to warm hearts and ease restless minds. As the tale drifted to a close, the children's eyes grew heavy, their breathing slow and steady as sleep gently claimed them. After the children were asleep, Njal and Gunnar would often remain near the fire, sharing quiet conversation. The crackle of the burning logs and the soft hum of the night outside wrapped around them like a comforting cloak. Njal spoke softly about the delicate balance of their lives. "Strength," he said, "is not always in the sword arm or the roar of battle. Sometimes it is in the patient silence, the steady hand, the measured word spoken at the right moment." Gunnar, ever the warrior, listened with respect. He understood the power Njal described, the power to hold peace and prevent violence, to lead not through fear but through trust. They spoke too of the changes stirring beyond their village, the unrest in distant clans, the old grudges that threatened to ignite once more. Njal's eyes held a quiet determination. "We must be ready," he said, "not only to defend but to guide, to build bridges where others see only walls." Gunnar nodded, feeling the steady strength of their friendship, a bond forged in years of shared trials and quiet understanding. Outside, the landscape responded to spring's gentle call. Buds swelled on ancient oaks, promising leaves soon to unfurl. Wildflowers peeked shyly from the moss-covered earth, their colors delicate yet vibrant against the dark soil. The songs of birds returned in full chorus, a symphony that filled the cool mornings with life and hope. The village itself seemed to breathe anew, The market square, once empty and silent beneath the snow, now hummed softly as merchants arranged their goods, freshly gathered honey, dried meats, woven cloths, and simple carved wooden toys. The sound of barter and friendly greetings mingled with the scent of baking bread and fresh herbs. Njal walked through the village with a steady gaze, noting the faces of his people, hopeful, weary, and resilient all at once. He understood deeply that peace was fragile, a thread that could be easily broken by a careless word or a rash action. Though spring brought warmth and light, Njal and Gunnar remained vigilant. The news of disputes among neighboring clans was an unspoken shadow at the edges of their conversations. They knew that beneath the budding life, old tensions simmered, waiting for a spark. Njal's mind often returned to the lessons of the past, the consequences of anger left unchecked, the costs of revenge. He believed that justice and mercy must walk hand in hand, that true leadership was found in the courage to choose peace over war. One evening, under a sky dusted with stars, Njal said quietly to Gunnar, "The river carves the stone not by force, but by gentle persistence. So must we guide our people, steadily, patiently, without breaking the flow of life." Gunnar's gaze was steady, his voice low but firm. "And if the current turns harsh, I will be there to stand against it." Their resolve was a quiet flame burning steady in the heart of the village, a promise of protection and wisdom in uncertain times. Days slipped into weeks, each one a gentle turn of the wheel. The village moved to the rhythm of planting and growing, of preparing for the bounty that summer would bring. The simple joys of daily life, the shared meals, the laughter of children, the stories told by firelight, wove a fabric of comfort and continuity. Njal often found solace in the small details, the first blossom on a branch, the call of a bird returning home, the warmth of a hand held in friendship. These were the moments that reminded him of the strength found in stillness, the power of hope nurtured quietly over time. Though the future remained uncertain, Njal and Gunnar faced it together, with steady hearts, clear minds, and an unshakable bond. They were guardians of their people's peace, patient architects of a future where honor and kindness might flourish. As spring progressed, the village became a living tapestry of quiet strength and gentle activity. Each person played their part, small actions weaving together to create the rhythm of daily life. Farmers tended their fields with patient hands, turning the earth to welcome new seeds. The scent of fresh soil mixed with blooming flowers, filling the air with a subtle sweetness. Women worked together, sharing stories and laughter as they prepared meals, spun wool, and mended clothing. The children's voices floated through the village, a soft chorus of play and discovery beneath the watchful eyes of elders. Njal often paused during his walks to watch these scenes unfold, the bending backs planting crops, the careful weaving of baskets, the shared meals that nourished not just bodies, but bonds between neighbors. He understood deeply that the strength of a community was found not in grand gestures, but in these quiet moments of connection and care. Njal's thoughts often wandered to the history that shaped them, the stories passed down from fathers to sons, mothers to daughters, tales of great leaders who ruled with wisdom, and of times when anger and pride led to destruction. These lessons were like lanterns in the dark, guiding him as he sought to lead with patience and justice. One evening, as the sun dipped low, casting a warm golden glow, Njal shared a story with Gunnar about a leader who chose mercy over vengeance. "It is easier to fight and win a battle," Njal said softly, but it takes greater courage to hold peace in your hands and protect it." Gunnar listened, the firelight flickering in his eyes. Though a warrior by nature, he knew the truth in Njal's words, that strength was more than force, and that lasting peace was a prize worth every effort. Even as the village thrived, Njal and Gunnar remained mindful of the wider world. Rumors of unrest traveled on the winds, old feuds simmering beneath the surface, neighboring clans readying for conflict. The knowledge weighed on them both, but they faced it with calm resolve. Njal believed that their best defense was not just shields and swords, but wisdom and unity. He met often with village elders and trusted friends, discussing ways to strengthen bonds and find peaceful solutions to disputes. In the quiet of the night, Njal would sit by the fire and think of the river, a constant force that shaped the land slowly and surely. "We must be like the river," he told Gunnar, "steady and patient, able to endure and adapt, guiding those around us toward safety." Gunnar nodded, knowing that whatever storms might come, they would meet them together, with steady hearts and unbreakable loyalty. The village settled deeper into spring, as if waking slowly from a long, deep sleep. Each morning the sun rose a little higher, spilling golden light across fields that were already turning soft shades of green. The earth, once hard and frozen, softened beneath the feet of farmers and children alike, its promise whispering beneath the surface. Njal moved among his people with a quiet presence, a steady hand guiding with subtle strength. His eyes, thoughtful and kind, saw beyond the daily tasks, the sowing of seeds, the tending of animals, the building of homes, to the larger pattern of life. He understood that these small acts were the true foundation of their survival and peace. The village was a tapestry woven from many threads, young and old, strong and gentle, quiet and bold. Each person's work, no matter how small, mattered deeply. The blacksmith shaped iron with slow, deliberate blows. The weavers sang soft melodies as they worked. The elders shared stories by the fire, their voices low and steady like the heartbeat of the land itself. Njal often found himself pausing in moments of stillness. A child's curious gaze, a mother's tender touch, the slow unfurling of a leaf, reminded that life was fragile and precious, and that patience was a strength greater than any sword. In the evenings, after the village had quieted and the stars emerged one by one, Njal and Gunnar would sit near the hearth, sharing tales and reflections. Njal's voice was calm and steady, weaving lessons from the past into stories meant not only to entertain but to teach. One story told of a great king who ruled not through fear but through fairness. He listened to his people, even when their words were difficult to hear, and sought peace when war seemed inevitable. Njal's tone was gentle, almost meditative, as he described the king's courage to choose mercy over might, a choice that shaped the future of his kingdom. Gunnar, though a warrior by nature, found comfort in these stories. He understood that battles won by strength alone could leave wounds that festered beneath the surface. True victory, he realized, came when justice and compassion walked hand in hand, weaving a peace that could last through generations. Njal would often pause, eyes reflecting the firelight, and say softly, "We are the guardians not only of our homes, but of the hope that peace can endure." Though the village thrived in its quiet harmony, the world beyond was shifting like the restless wind. Rumors traveled slowly but surely, whispers of rival clans gathering strength, of old grievances threatening to break the fragile calm. Njal and Gunnar listened carefully to these tidings, their minds weighing the gravity of what might come. Yet even in the face of uncertainty, Njal's resolve remained unshaken. He believed in the power of dialogue and patience, in the slow work of building bridges where others saw only walls. "We must be like the river," Njal said one night, persistent and steady, shaping the land not by force, but by gentle persistence. Gunnar nodded, his gaze firm. "And if the river meets rocks, I will stand beside it, steady and unyielding." Together they planned quietly, seeking ways to strengthen their people's bonds, to prepare not only for conflict but for peace, whatever shape it might take. In the heart of the village, life moved with a gentle rhythm. Meals shared beneath the open sky, hands joined in work and celebration, stories passed from one generation to the next. The simple joys of daily life, fresh bread baking, the first blossom on a tree, the soft glow of firelight, wove a tapestry of comfort and hope. Njal treasured these moments, knowing they were the true strength of his people. He saw how the children learned from the elders, how friendships deepened in shared tasks, how laughter lifted spirits even in the darkest times. As the sun set each day, casting long shadows across the fields, Njal would stand quietly outside his longhouse, breathing in the cool evening air. The stars would emerge, steady and bright, and he felt the pulse of life around him, a steady beat of resilience and renewal. In this quiet, Njal found peace, not the absence of trouble, but the calm courage to face it. As the weeks stretched into late spring, the village seemed to hum with quiet energy. Life blossomed not only in the fields, but in the hearts of the people. The air was fragrant with blooming wildflowers and fresh earth, and the soft buzz of bees drifted lazily from flower to flower. It was a time of renewal, of gentle growth, when even the smallest seed held the promise of the future. Njal often found himself reflecting on the wisdom carried down through countless generations. The sagas and tales told around fires were more than stories. They were the voices of ancestors speaking across time, reminding the living of their place in the world. Each lesson was a thread in a vast tapestry, woven carefully to guide the steps of those who came after. One evening, beneath a sky painted with streaks of deep purple and soft pink, Njal shared a tale with Gunnar about an old chieftain known for his patience. This leader had faced great challenges, not with force, but with calm resolve. Njal's voice was slow and measured, each word chosen like a gentle touch. The chieftain knew that anger was a fire easily sparked but difficult to control, Njal said. He taught that a true leader listens more than he speaks, and that sometimes the greatest strength is the courage to wait. Gunnar nodded thoughtfully, feeling the weight of the lesson settle in his heart. Even for a warrior, this was a truth hard-earned, but invaluable. The village thrived in this season of quiet abundance. Gardens, once bare, were now lush with rows of vegetables and herbs. The scent of fresh basil and thyme mingled with the earthy aroma of damp soil and blooming trees. Children played freely, their laughter ringing like clear bells in the warm air, while elders tended to small fires, sharing memories and soft songs. Njal moved among his people with gentle purpose. He greeted each with a smile, listened to their concerns, and offered quiet counsel. His presence was a steady comfort, a reminder that even in uncertain times, there was strength in unity and calm. The longhouse doors often stood open, welcoming neighbors and travelers alike. Stories were exchanged, meals shared, and friendships forged in the warmth of community. These moments, simple and profound, were the heartbeats of the village's peace. Despite the calm, Njal and Gunnar knew that life was a cycle of change and challenge. The peaceful days of spring would eventually give way to harsher seasons, and with them, new trials. They met often to plan, their conversations measured and thoughtful, focused on the well-being of their people. Njal believed that preparation was not just about defense, but about understanding. "We must know the land, the people, and the stories that bind us," he would say. "Only then can we hope to guide our village safely through what lies ahead." Gunnar, ever the protector, agreed, but reminded Njal gently of the need for readiness. Peace is precious, but so is vigilance. When the time comes, we must be ready to stand firm. Together they worked to strengthen not only their defenses but the bonds between neighbors, organizing gatherings, encouraging open dialogue, and fostering trust. It was a slow, patient work, but Njal knew it was the foundation upon which lasting peace was built. As night fell over the village, the world seemed to exhale. The sky above was a vast velvet canvas sprinkled with stars that shimmered like distant fires. The soft glow of the moon bathed the land in silver light, casting gentle shadows that danced among the trees. Njal often found himself drawn outside at this hour, standing beneath the quiet sky. The cool night air was filled with the subtle sounds of nature, the rustle of leaves, the distant call of an owl, the whisper of a breeze moving through the grass. In these moments, Njal felt connected to something greater than himself, the enduring cycle of life, the steady march of time, and the enduring hope that peace could flourish even in uncertain times. He thought of the river that wound its way through the valley, ever flowing, ever persistent. Like that river, he believed their village could endure, shaping its path not with force, but with steady patience and quiet strength. As the night deepened, Njal remained beneath the stars, his breath slow and even. The village around him had grown still, each home holding its own quiet peace. The gentle flicker of lanterns and hearth fires was a soft reminder of warmth and safety amid the cool darkness. Njal thought about the days ahead, the work to be done, the challenges that might come, but he felt a deep calm within. He knew that peace was not simply the absence of conflict, but a promise nurtured day by day through patience, kindness, and shared strength. The stories told by the elders, the laughter of children, the steady rhythm of life, all these were threads weaving together to form a tapestry more resilient than any sword or shield. It was a fabric made of trust and hope, stretching across time and space, holding the village close. In the quiet, Njal made a silent vow to lead with gentle courage, to listen with an open heart, and to cherish the small moments that made their lives whole. The future was uncertain, yes, but also full of possibility. Like the river that never ceased to flow, they too would move forward, steady and enduring. With a final deep breath, Njal turned toward his longhouse, feeling the soft earth beneath his feet and the cool night air settle around him like a comforting cloak. Tomorrow would bring new dawns, new stories, and new chances for peace to grow. And so, under the watchful stars, the village slept, wrapped in the quiet promise of tomorrow. As dawn slowly brightened the horizon, casting soft hues of pink and gold across the sky, the village stirred awake once more. The night's quiet promise had settled deep into the hearts of its people, a reminder that even in the simplest days, there is strength and hope. Njal looked out over the fields, feeling a deep gratitude for the community that had grown from patience, kindness, and steady care. Their story was one of resilience, not in grand battles or fierce words, but in the gentle rhythms of everyday life. Now, as you prepare to rest, may you carry with you the calm courage of Njal and his village. Like them, may you find peace in the quiet moments and strength in the steady flow of time. If you truly enjoyed this journey through history and heart, please consider subscribing and joining me again. Together, we'll explore more stories, soft, soothing, and full of wonder, to help you relax and drift gently to sleep. Thank you for listening. Sleep well, and until next time, may your dreams be peaceful and kind.